learning through arts and crafts. Right. So if we are in a preschool setting, we suggest that at least one day a week you dedicate to a craft and arts activity. And we find that Fridays are usually a very good day for this because you can then use the craft activity to reinforce what you've been teaching the children during that week. And as well, Fridays come, children are tired, the teachers are tired, so you don't really just want to be sitting and listening to a teacher speak. You want to have something more interactive where they're moving around and they can have fun and not have to have a strict classroom environment on the Friday. So today we are going to look at benefits of arts and crafts. So just again, if you don't have a preschool right now, but you have access to children, or you have your own children, I have got a almost 2-year-old and a 2-month-old baby, and we do a lot of arts and crafts with my 2-year-old as well, because there's just so many added benefits to it. So this is not just a lesson for if you have a preschool. You can use it on any children. And especially now with the lockdown, the more ideas you have of arts and crafts activities you can do, the better, because then it keeps the children from being mischievous or not behaving themselves. All right, so the first benefit to arts and crafts is bilateral coordination. Now, bilateral coordination means that it is something where the child has to use both hands at the same time. So you can see there on the left, it's like coloring in, drawing, cutting. So all of these things where they are making a craft, it's a bilateral coordination. And that helps them later in life to be able to write or tie their shoes or type or fasten a button or zip up their jersey, because it's two hands working together at the same time is one of the benefits that you get from arts and crafts. Then the second one, we have fine motor coordination. Now, fine motor coordination is any small movements. It's the opposite of gross motor, which is big. It's fine motor. It's where you're using your hands and your fingers. So if you think about arts and crafts, they will be cutting something, or they will be drawing, or they will be squishing Play-Doh, or if you are busy constructing items, they are strengthening their hands by doing these activities, whether it's drawing shapes, cutting patterns, and with their handwriting, with their hands being strengthened, it means that they will be able to hold a pencil much better for later on. You'll see that later on in their lives, when they're dressing themselves, when they're eating, to hold the knife and fork or the spoon, or in the academic setting when they are having to write essays or write when they're at school, because they've been doing arts and crafts and they've strengthened those hand muscles and their fine motor coordination has been stimulated, they will actually do much better in their writing in their academic setting. The third benefit would be that children will learn how to follow instructions. Whenever you're making a craft, there's a certain way that the child has to make it. For example, if we'll look at it later, but we're going to be making, if you were to make an octopus out of a toilet roll, you have to color it first, then cut it, then draw the eyes. If you cut it first and then you try color it, it's very difficult to color because now the pieces are loose. So the child must learn to follow instructions to complete the specific project that you have given them. Now, if they don't follow instructions, like you see there on the screen, let's say you want to have them make a mask of a lion. If they don't follow the instructions the way that you said to make the mask of the lion, then the end project is not going to look like what you want it to look. So for example, if your theme of the week was wild animals and Friday you're reinforcing that theme by making a mask of a lion, and the child, there wasn't clear instructions, or if there were clear instructions and they weren't listening, and they make a mask of a cat or of a dog, then it doesn't really reinforce that the theme or the lesson that you were teaching throughout the week. And also, if you think about this, if a child can follow simple instructions when they are making a craft, later on in life, if they go to school and the teacher says, everybody please go stand behind your chairs, the child knows it's an instruction, I must not go and stand behind my chair. Or they get given homework, it's an instruction, they learn that they must follow instructions that they get. It teaches them self-regulation, which is pretty much the same as patience. A lot of times when you're making crafts, you're either sticking, gluing, painting, and all of those things require some time for the glue to dry or for the paint to dry. And this is a great lesson for the child to demonstrate self-control and patience. And also, things might not go exactly as what they have hoped for. And if they stuck something and it's come off, or it's skew, or it's not exactly what they wanted, they can learn to be patient with themselves and better as they continue working on these arts and crafts, rather than just giving up immediately. So it's a great way to also promote flexibility in a child. So if you've made an example of your craft, if the child, yes, also made a mask that looks like a lion, but the whiskers are a little bit funny or the eyes are a bit skew, that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. The child can bring in their own creativity as long as the end product is the same as what you have instructed them to do. But also, if you are just having a fun arts and crafts session and it's not to do with any theme that you had for that week or anything, then let the child be creative, because children's creativity is way more than what adults are. And you'll find that they will come up with some amazing ideas, which you could then actually use in the future with the new children or with them again. Another benefit is it's a self-esteem booster. Now, that being said, it's a self-esteem booster if you are encouraging the child to create or make their own craft, and you are praising them throughout the process. So we do want to challenge our children to become better. And when we make a craft, we do want them to be able to learn new skills. But it's very important that in the beginning, when we're starting these arts and crafts, that it's at the child's skill level. So if the child can't cut yet, it doesn't help giving them a craft where they need to cut nicely on a line to get a pretty picture. Or if we know the child can't glue things down yet, it doesn't help us trying to give them the glue and give them the paper and let them glue it. So make sure you then use a very, very basic, simple craft that they can complete successfully and mainly on their own. Because if you have a craft and you're sitting and doing it for them, then they're not really learning anything. They're not getting the benefits of the bilateral coordination or the strengthening of their hands or the self-esteem booster where they feel like, oh, wow, I did it. No, actually just my mom did it or my teacher did it for me. So then as the child can do more crafts and they've bettered their fine motor coordination and their hands are a bit stronger and they can understand to do bigger or more complex crafts, then you can make the craft a little bit more difficult or challenging for the child. And then this is something I've been saying throughout all the other benefits, is just a benefit of having a craft is it reinforces the concept or the theme that has been taught. A lot of children, if you attend our preschool teachers course, which is our main teachers course that we actually run, we will still see if we can get that one online. But if all goes well with the lockdown, we will be having one in September again. So this is where you'll come learn about the themes and the concepts, and also that all children learn in different ways. Not everybody learns by a teacher just repeating something to them. Some children learn best through singing songs and dancing and playing music. which you'll learn on Monday. Some children learned through creativity. If they were to draw a picture of what you have been teaching them, they will remember it. Or if they are making a craft, which then is what you have been teaching them about, they will remember it. So it's very good to reinforce whatever you have been teaching. And then you want to allow the child to take that craft home to show their parents. They'll love it. Whether the craft looks to your standard, not at all what you wanted them to do, to them it is perfect and they love it, and they would want to go and show it to the parents. And also it will demonstrate to the parents that you're providing quality education for their child. A lot of times parents don't realize that children can learn through crafts and arts, which looks like they're just wasting time or just having fun or just sticking and coloring, but actually there's a lot of education going through, and the child is learning a lot while they're doing it. So send the craft home, and then the parents can see that you're actually doing something at your preschool. So when you are actually making the crafts, there's just some things you want to bear in mind. And the first one is you want to make sure that the child will be able to do most of the craft by themselves. So this means that you need to choose an activity which isn't very difficult. So it mustn't be so difficult that the teacher has to make it while the child is watching. And in a classroom setting, if you have one child or two children, it might be fine for you as a teacher to try and help them, each child. But now think about if the school grows and you have got 20 children in your class, you can't go and make each child's craft for them. So you want to make sure that the craft is something that they can mainly do by themselves. Yes, you might have to do one or two things in some of the crafts, but most of it they must be able to do on their own. You want to allow the child to create his craft independently unless they specifically ask you for help. And this is a lot of times very difficult for us, because us as adults can see, oh, we can just quickly cut it, or we can just quickly fold it and then it'll be finished. But that isn't helping the child. It's actually going to do more harm than good for them. So it doesn't matter if their finished piece isn't perfect. It's important for them to be doing the work, as that is when they are learning. For example, just because you've watched another person driving a car every day doesn't mean that you know how to drive a car, right? The same with riding a bicycle. You can be watching people riding bicycles all day long, but it doesn't mean when you get on that bicycle, you're going to be able to ride it. You're going to have to get on it a couple of times and learn how to do it. So that's how the child will learn, is by doing it themselves, realizing how much glue to put on, or how much paint, or cutting, if they should do it slower, or what they can do differently next time to make their craft look better. You as a teacher or as the adult want to make an example. So while you're making an example, you'll also discover whether it's too easy or too difficult for the child to make. You'll also be able to make sure that you have everything you need in order to make the craft. So the example will also help the child to know what his finished piece should look like. It's like building a puzzle. I don't know if anybody has tried building a puzzle which is maybe more than 300 pieces, but definitely if you get to 1,500 pieces or even 3,000 piece puzzles, you definitely need a picture to see what the end product looks like, so that you know where the pieces are all going to have to fit in together. So the same with making the craft. If you have an example, so you'll see, I'll show you, if you were in my actual class and you could see each other together, and you would be making all of these crafts that are in the manual. I have made an example of the craft because, yes, in the manual there's a picture of what the craft looked like. There's instructions of how you need to make it and what you will need to make it, but I'm still giving you the end product that you know what you're working towards. Same with that example, with that point over there, is I know then, okay, I need paper plates, I need orange paper, I need black crayons, I need black paint, I need glue. All of those things, while I'm making the craft, I'm like, okay, this is all the things I need. Let me make sure I've got enough of that, so that when we are making it with the child, everything is ready. And that's the next point. You want to gather and prepare all the materials and equipment that the children will need in advance. You don't want to waste your lesson time running around looking for something. Also, you can't have a child start cutting something and then you leave them and you go look for the next thing and then the next thing. It's not a very controlled environment. So you need to make sure everything is there, that you can focus all your attention on them just finishing the craft that they are making. And then write down step by step how the craft is made. Like I just mentioned in our manual that we've got a picture of the crafts, and then we've got exactly how it must be made. So I will show you over here, for example. We have got the clock that is made out of a paper plate. Over here, we've got what you need and then the instructions of how to make it. So why this is important is you might forget something that you need, or in a classroom setting, if you're the teacher and you're sick that Friday and you were supposed to make a craft, if you've written down what is needed and how it must be made, then another teacher can take over your responsibilities and still continue and provide education to the children, even if you're not there. All right, so the last 2 or 3 slides is just some craft ideas. What we have done with this course is we don't want to have crafts that cost a lot of money or that need such fancy materials that you hardly can find it, like pipe cleaners. I don't even know where people find pipe cleaners anymore, but we look at using resources and materials that anyone can find anywhere. So for example, you'll see there's some empty toilet rolls, there's paper plates, there's empty egg cartons, and then any other, we call it rubbish, but you can use it like cereal boxes, tea and coffee wrappers that are nice and shiny. All of those kind of things you can use for arts and crafts. And now during lockdown, it's great. I mean, everybody has empty toilet rolls. If you eat eggs, you've got empty egg cartons. So it's things you can use and still get access to, even now in this period when there's the lockdown. So for example, the top left corner there, we've got some music shakers, which was made out of empty toilet rolls. The child just gets the toilet roll, decorates it as they want. You put some rice inside and you close it up with a bottle top at the top and the bottom. And then when they shake it, it makes a nice noise. At the bottom, we have got a octopus also made out of a empty toilet roll. And I've got my example over here as well. So very basic and simple. You literally needed an empty toilet roll, either some paint or crayons, and then a pen or pencil to draw the face, and your scissors to cut the octopus, the tentacles of the octopus. We have got many other examples as well in the manual. There's at least 7 of each, 7 things you can make using empty toilet rolls, 7 things you can make using paper plates, 7 things you can make using empty egg cartons. And then we have got ideas on Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Easter and Christmas time, because those are great times of the year when you can make that your theme in your preschool and make crafts that fit in with that, because the children are seeing that everywhere they're going. So if you look at the paper plates on the screen there, I've got a fish. Again, it's a paper plate, some coloring in crayons, or you can cut out different colored piece of paper, and the mouth that we had cut out of the paper plate we stuck as the tail, so you don't have to get anything extra, you're just using a paper plate. There's a shark as well that you can make from a paper plate, and then my penguin that I showed you earlier as well. It's a paper plate that we folded in, we painted it, we cut out some eyes, nose and feet, and we stuck it on. So very basic and simple. And then when you look at the egg cartons, we've got bees, loads of different animals you can make, bunnies, penguins again. So very easy to find a theme that it would fit in with. and then make a craft according to that. Then we've got sponge painting and finger painting. What I've added there is if you have a picture and you just paint it with your fingers instead of painting it with a paintbrush. So over here we've got a tree, and what we did is you put your finger in the paint and you just pushing the fingerprints down, and same with the bark, same with the flowers. But what this is it's great for the sensory feeling of the child, because if they are using a paintbrush, they don't actually, sorry, we've just got someone who, great, if everyone could just please make sure they keep their audio muted. There we go, thank you. Right, so when they're using their fingers, it's a different feeling to when they're using a paintbrush or coloring crayons. And it's great. Children love to get dirty and full of mess. And my daughter was painting her legs the other day with a orange peel. We were eating oranges and she was just like exfoliating her whole body with that. So the same with painting. They don't want it just to be on a paintbrush and all clean. So make sure when you're making arts and crafts as well, it's in a space where you don't mind it becoming messy, that you can clean up later, instead of worrying like, oh, don't mess paint, don't mess glue, don't mess this. Let them make a mess, and then afterwards everybody cleans up together. And then sponge painting, this is one of our examples that we make, which is our Easter egg. And it's just a picture of an Easter egg. You get old sponges and then you squash it into the paint and you just dab it on. And what's great is it's a different texture and it's a different look to what it would look like if I used a paintbrush or if I used crayons or colored pencils to color in. So you've got a lot of creativity coming from using different ways to make the craft. Right, second last is Play-Doh. If you want to take a screenshot, you're welcome to. This is a very easy recipe that you can make at home to make Play-Doh. And what's great about Play-Doh is it lasts very long if you keep it in a sealed container, so you can use it over and over again. And the creativity of the child is amazing. They can make anything they want, so they can decide what they want to make. And if you want to have it colorful Play-Doh, so for example, if you're going to make the Play-Doh, we suggest you use warm water instead of cold water, and first mix together all the wet ingredients, and then you add the flour and the salt. So if you just want plain white Play-Doh, you just don't put in the food coloring. But if you want to have it a specific color, you're just going to add not even a whole cap full, like those small little bottles of food coloring. You won't even do a whole cap full. You will only be doing a tiny little bit, like 2 or 3 drops to create the color. So you'll put the warm water cooking oil and the food coloring together, mix that together, and then you add the flour and the salt. Right, and then lastly, fun food with fun food crafts. So you can see there are many things that you can use to do crafts with. I would say that maybe once a month you do have a fun craft on a Friday that in your preschool you are going to use food. We don't want to give the children too much sugar though. Make sure you attend Leona's training session on the nutrition of children as well. It's lots and lots of excellent information you're going to be getting. But for example, we've got the Marie biscuits. You just have the Marie biscuit with icing, and you can create little bugs. You can create a face at the top right-hand corner. You can create different counting biscuits. So for example, even with those little bugs up there, they have little dots on them. So the child can learn different concepts through making that craft. They can learn numbers, they can learn colors, they can learn shapes as well. In the middle, we've got a different shape of biscuit. So you've got a round biscuit, you've got a rectangular biscuit, and they can make little cars at the top, or at the bottom, they can make a traffic light. Again, they're learning different colors, so red and yellow and green. So Only thing with making food crafts is you want to make sure they don't eat all the ingredients before they actually make the craft. So you'll have to be there to make sure that the craft is going according to plan. And then at the bottom left and right corner, you see you can even use fruit. They've got some naartjies and grapes where they created a fish, or the watermelon, they created ladybugs. And it's as easy as having a heart cookie cutter. You cut slices of watermelon, you then punch it with the cookie cutter, and that creates the heart shape. And then you can either use melted chocolate or icing that's got cocoa in it to make the legs and the dots and the face of the ladybug. So lots and lots of ideas of arts and crafts.